All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks again for joining us. My name is Simran, and I'm with Canopy. Canopy is a co-working space that's based in San Francisco. We've got the lovely Lindsay Mann again, along with Jósa Goodlife, who are both healers. And from their experiences, they're going to be sharing what the Akashic Records are, how they receive the messages, and the profound healing they've gotten from working with them. So, Lindsay and Jósa, I'm really excited that you're here, and I'll let you take it from here now.
Hi. Thank you all
Hello.
for joining us. I'm so excited to be sharing this talk with Yosa. We're great friends. We actually met while learning how to work in the Akashic Records. So it's been quite a journey together. And we've done lots of work with each other, personal lives, professional lives, and it's been incredible. So we're really excited to share our experiences in the Akashic Records with all of you today.
Yay! Hello, everyone. I'm Yosa. I am so pleased to be here with Lindsay and Canopy and all of you guys. I'm like never really sure how it's like speaker view or gallery view. So now I'm having the gallery view just to have an idea. It's awesome. Yes, me and Lindsay, we've known each other for like almost a couple of years, I guess.
Now, yeah.
Yeah. And doing this work together amongst other work, and it's just incredible.
Yeah. So actually, I was saying, because we work in so many modalities, and we are here to talk about the Akashic Records, but also if you want to share a little bit of background of the other modalities that you work in as well.
Yes, I would love to. I mean, I started my journey like, well, I lived in Denmark. I'm from Iceland originally, so I've lived in Denmark and Iceland and now here. And I started my journey like the healing journey in India, where I took my first Reiki. And then I was in Denmark and I was doing yoga and meditation and all that stuff. And then I came, oh yeah, and then I found something called Access Bars, which is like kind of amazing modality as well. And that kind of blew my brains out literally. So I felt like, wow, my life will never really be the same again, because it helped me to really clear out the limitations that I had been like stuck in for a long time. And then after working with that for several years, I kept on hearing the Akashic Records, and I was always like, what is that? What is that? And I started to just look a little bit further and listen a little bit clearer. And yeah, and then all of a sudden I was in it. I was in at a course, and I think, wasn't that where we met first time?
Where we met. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And so, yeah. And I love, so Yosa is also my Access Consciousness Bars teacher. So I learned with her. And so my background, being in New York, first I was learning Vedic meditation, and then simultaneously that practice was bringing me to Kundalini, yoga, and then Reiki very quickly. And then from Reiki, the Akashic Records, and that's where I met Yosa. And then I learned about Access Consciousness Bars. And so there's just so many incredible modalities to work with. And I feel like, especially these past few months, there's been a lot of piqued interest in the Akashic Records, which is like the Akashic Records are connecting with us, you know, us feeling called to them, us being curious to open them. It's all just right on time. And I think, you know, when I first heard of the Akashic Records, I was like, whoa, that sounds really big and really powerful. And I was kind of intimidated by it. And then I had some friends who were, they were recently attuned, and they were doing their 30-day practice. And one of my friends offered me a session, and that was my first experience in the records. And then when our teacher, Christina Cross, was in town in Brooklyn, I had this giddy, childlike joy to want to learn it. And I just said, okay, I'm going to learn it. But prior to that, I was completely intimidated. I was like, I don't know what this is. I don't want to, you know, and then it's been the most profound, loving, healing guidance I could have ever wished or imagined to connect with.
I know. And oh my God, just when you mentioned Christina, I just really want to, you know, bring Christina Cross and her energy into this conversation, because, you know, without her, we wouldn't probably be here together, because, you know, we might have found it somehow else, but she is an amazing teacher. And I also, it's funny that you mentioned the sensation that you had in your body around the Akashic, because I ended up like calling Christina like 2 days before class, because I wanted to tune in with her. And oh my God, just immediately, like my whole body, like everything, my just crown opened up immediately. And I was like getting all this information, Akashic information immediately, without like have ever like learned anything or read anything really, the prayer or anything. So I remember how that would like really, that was my answer. I was like, of course you have to go to this class, you know.
Yeah. And actually the connection that I made was when my friend was giving me a session. At the end of it, she was saying something about fish being the most intuitive creatures on the planet. And there was something around fish in my reading. And at the end of our attunement that weekend with Christina Cross, after we had been practicing on each other all weekend, at the very end of it, she looked at me, Christina Cross, and she says, "Oh, like a fish to water."
Oh my God.
And so it's like this beautiful thing that happened. And so what Jósa and I want to share with you today, there's a lot of information that you can look up, and like, what is the Akashic Records and how do you experience it? And so we'd like to share our personal definitions and explanations of the Akashic Records and how we explain to our clients and friends and people, everyone, like what the Akashic Records are, and also to share how we receive the messages and the information. And then also a little bit on how the records have been so beneficial in our lives, how we work in the records, because there are so many ways to work in the records. And you know, since we've met, we've also often done trades where we'll open each other's records, and we've followed each other these past couple of years in our lives and seen these stories unfold, both in, you know, the earthly realm and the Akashic Records. And so it's really beautiful. And so I'm just excited to, however our words, you know, resonate with you. That's why I feel like it's wonderful to share from our own experiences what the Akashic Records are, because different things will resonate with different people.
Definitely. And you might like hear from many different people, different teachers, different practitioners out there, what the Akashic Records are. And, you know, in general, like the spiritual world, the metaphysical world can sometimes be a little bit confusing when it comes to like definitions and oh, this is the way or that is the way. But I would say in general, first of all, the Akashic Records is the most non-judgmental field. It is not aligned with this reality. It is not aligned with the human, what do you call? It's like the definitions that we have here. So when we are in the records, they always try to speak to us so we can understand, right? But that's not necessarily exactly how the outer realms are, or like all these different realities. So I would say, like, I think it's really important for everyone to know that your experience is the greatest, you know, and if I am reading for you, it's not, you know, I can see something and I can tell you what I'm seeing, but your experience of that information is the one that counts. That's why Christina was so like thorough in her teachings about never keep anything away from the person that you're reading for, because all the information is important to flow through you, because you don't have a clue, you don't know anything maybe about these people. Like I read for people that I've never met, like having them on the phone, and I'm like, I don't have a clue who you are, but I'm getting all this information.
Mhm.
So what would you like to say about that, Lindsay?
Yeah, well, I think it's a good point to jump into
Yes.
our explanations and how we tell people what the Akashic records are.
Yeah.
And you know, it's fun because I have this explanation that I share every single time, and then also before doing an event or a talk, I'll open the records prior and see in that moment, knowing who might be here today, I ask the question again, how can I explain the Akashic records to the people who are going to be attending? And I'll get a slightly different answer.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And then I'll ask, you know, what's the most important message that comes through? So
Yeah.
I'll just share generally what I say, and then also what I got today, just a few minutes before we started.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm sharing what are the Akashic records, I say that they are the vibrational archives of every soul's journey throughout all its incarnations. So it's all of your past lives, everything going on in your current life, and all future possibilities and beyond. And when we're talking about the future is not set in stone, and we have free will. The information that's coming through from the Akashic records is for the highest good of you and everyone connected to you. So you're never going to hear anything that's harmful. You're never going to hear anything you're not ready to hear. And the Akashic records meet you where you're at. The more kind of scientific explanation that I have come across is the Akashic records are the electromagnetic imprint of everything that's ever happened. And so when I'm explaining that, I'm saying like, everything that exists is made up of atoms and energy. Atoms can't be destroyed. They just transform. And so everything that has ever existed in the universe is still energetically here and available. Yeah. And so Jósa and I, working with Christina Cross, learning from her, we learned the opening prayer, the pathway prayer process. And so when we say the opening prayer, there's specific words, specific vibrations, requesting, having very specific intentions of what we are opening. So that's how we open and we close a session, by being very, very intentional of what we're accessing and how we're accessing. So that's the snippet of how I generally explain to people what the Akashic records are. And so again, like I'm curious to see, Jósa, how do you talk to people about the Akashic records?
I think it's also kind of maybe different each time. I see the Akashic records as I see them and as I understand them in general is like this field of information. It's the archives, as you mentioned, it's the files, it's the blueprint of who you are, who you be. So you're a being, so you are not what you do, you are who you be. And that's the energy that is archived in the records. So everything that you have been, and everything that you be now, and everything that is potential for you now, and everything that is possible for you in the future. So all the greater possibilities that you might not have even tapped into ever are there. And sometimes we walk in life with these like, you know, we're like, oh, I have a feeling of this, but I don't really want to know, or this is not true, this is something I'm making up. The records really truly show basically very much your soul's essence. And of course the soul as I understand it, the soul travels, right? So it's never really maybe, it's hard to explain this with words, because the soul is always traveling. If you believe in like reincarnation, we're going to be taking many forms in many lifetimes, different lifetimes in different bodies, in different places on the planet, or even in other galaxies. So, but I do believe that everything is, and that's also what the Akashic records do refer to, is that imprint of that soul that you be, that you always been, and that you will always be. So all these information are like locked in, maybe into some kind of a bubble out in the universe, you know, it's kind of, and that's where the books are. And And so when we do connect with the record keepers, as Lindsay mentioned, we open up a prayer and then we go in and they will show us in different ways, which we will tell you more about how we experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I do, just before we get into that, because that's really fun, I do want to share what just came through today as an explanation. And I guess it's coming through specifically for who's present. So I asked the records today, what are the Akashic Records? The answer that came through was, they're for all of us, seeking wisdom, seeking higher knowing and understanding. A breath of fresh air, when it's stale, dark, grave, stark, opens the possibilities of all. Awareness. And then they love to play with words with me. They said, aware mess. Awareness and awareness.
I love that. Yeah.
They said, dreams come true, the higher you. Chapters, stories, books of you. They're for us to help guide us through life, obstacles, into creative flow, into God's lighter, more conscientious perspective on all things that exist and have ever existed. A mass encyclopedia of existence. Right? I love it. It's so fun. Living, breathing, being of consciousness, memories, guides, hopefuls, dismays, disarrays, rays of light, again, playing with words. It's almost poetry, you know?
It's so beautiful. Yeah.
So beautiful.
It is poetry. I mean,
it's
it
poetry.
is. Yeah.
It's poetry. Beams of light to click into for a higher perspective. Find us there.
Wow.
and then this came through as I was closing. First I said, what is the most important to tell the guest today? And they said, closure. The records can provide a peace of mind for closure on ailments over multiple lifetimes. Deep generational healing, ancestral healing, your soul's healing. Find yourself there.
Oh my God, this is so crazy. Okay, because I look forward to tell you what I got. Yeah.
Okay. And then they said, and again, this could be for who's present. They said, heals a scarcity mindset by opening up the possibilities. And that's what I got today, fresh for all of you.
Isn't it just amazing? And that is the cool thing. Like, you know, I can open up and ask and get a different version, right?
Yes.
That's beauty. So, but it's in a way, energetically, it's always really similar.
Yes.
It is. And that's, you know, because the energy of the records is really special. It is an energy that I don't really find it in anything else. You know, right now I'm doing shamanic journey a little bit, and that's interesting to just see the difference. It's totally different energy in the shamanism than it is in the Akashic field. And it doesn't mean that it's, you know, one is better than the other. No, these are just different possibilities. And that's beautiful. And I want to tell you, because I had like 5 minutes to open up the records just before I came on this call. And I asked, what do I need to know now? Like, what is required for this? And what the words that the few words that I got was like, and I've heard this before, but what came was, you are the one you're looking for. So that's basically like, in the records, you're being handed a key, which is the key of you. And that's so incredibly beautiful and so empowering. And then the funny words that also came were like, the records lubricate your soul.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's also really true, because, you know, when we're in the records, and maybe we'll talk a little bit more about it, but there's a lot of healing that comes through. And like, if you're facing, like now, especially in these times, these crazy times, like using the records on a, you know, regular basis. I mean, I just did a reading with somebody yesterday, and it's just like the amount of healing that comes in is just so incredible that everything kind of changes around you immediately. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, would you like to jump in on what we experience when we're providing a reading, or how the readings work?
Yes, definitely. I would say, like, usually when I go in, it's always now kind of the same format, usually more or less, that, I open the records with the pathway, what's it called? Pathway prayer to, which is, by the way, this is like taken from Linda Ho Institute. So for the Akashic studies. That's where Christina got educated, and that's also the lineage that we are coming from. So, but when I go in, usually it happens that I say the prayer with the name of the person that I'm reading for, and then they just start usually right before I say the records are open. I'm already starting to get like visuals and images, and even sometimes during the day. But I always try to kind of put that away because I'm not there yet. Let's wait until the session. And by the way, we never ever open records on anyone that we don't have allowance, just so that is clear. Never ever. We would never do that. So we always ask permission, and I don't believe that we can open even on people.
No, they wouldn't let us.
No.
You wouldn't be able to see anything.
No. I mean, I haven't tried, but I can imagine that that's like how it is. So yeah, but usually they show me a bunch of like maybe an image of you, the one that I'm reading for, in a place, and I describe what I'm seeing. I describe the sensations, the visuals. Sometimes usually it's calm in the beginning, usually, not always, but it's kind of just like giving me the essence of the soul that I'm dealing with. And I just describe everything that I see and everything that I hear. And I don't even ask usually people, what would you like to work on, until in the session when the records are open. I might have an idea about what it is, but in that way I'm more clear to just like be able to be a clear channel of what is actually wants to come through. And then, the one that I'm reading for can ask questions, and it can be like signs and symbols and colors and feelings and elements and crystals. It can be the earth, under the earth, or earth spirits. It can be entities. Usually they're not so significant, like there's a sensation of an entity, or like there's some fairies around, or I have a feeling that there's a grandmother out there, but usually they don't step in and say, like, it's not a channeling session. So it's not usually like very like, I have a message for you. The whole reading is a message. So, and then I open up for questions, and very often everything has already been like kind of answered, or like, and then we deepen through what I see and get to ask more questions. And then what has really started to evolve in my sessions, and I always kind of knew that that would happen. I just waited for it to happen, and it happened very. It started to really come through at the beginning of the pandemic, and in every single session there's a healing, and they always guide me to describe the healing for the person. So there's something sometimes with the chakras and the energetic fields and clearing. And I often sometimes also use clearing methods from the access clearing. So it's like, it can be a mixture of many things, a session with me. And how I get the sensations is different from person to person, although very similar. So
I agree. Yeah, I have, it's just what you said, similar experiences of the records while I'm receiving messages, and also, I see a lot of like patterns in my sessions, which is interesting. So, usually I'll explain to clients to prepare questions to have ahead of time. And maybe I'll send a list of suggested questions. But usually if someone's coming for a reading, they have something that they're working through, something that they need some support on. And so generally I say, you know, come to me with questions, phrased as how, why, or what questions, very broad. But prior, you would share your backstory. And it's almost like this flow happens where the more you speak, the more I'm receiving information. And that's not always the case. Sometimes it's just flooding through anyway. You know, as Jósa was mentioning with the opening prayer, sometimes you just start getting the visuals while you're even doing the opening prayer. Another interesting thing that happens is on occasion, and it's rare, but it's happened, if I'm not supposed to do a reading for someone, I will completely draw a blank with the opening prayer, or they will not let me open the records. And it just might be not the right time, not the this, not that. You know, it's very interesting, and you listen to that. It's very rare that happens. But so saying the opening prayer with the full legal name of the person being read, the full legal name being the full vibrational name of the person being read. And then saying the records are now open. And I do a mix of my eyes being closed and my eyes being open. And so the way that I see my messages are when my eyes are closed. And, you know, I want to mention that I have not been a person with this, you know, grand imagination. And so that's how I know that this is very different. This, you know, and the Akashic Records, it's not coming from our consciousness. And this isn't psychic channeling. This is spiritual channeling. This is from the soul's perspective. So we're receiving soul information, soul level information. That's how deep this goes. And that's why it resonates with you in these almost inexplicable ways. And so we'll be receiving visual, as Jósa mentioned, symbols, colors, and we're just supposed to share what's coming through and not necessarily interpret it unless we're being guided to interpret it. And so I'll get sensations. I'll start feeling pain in a place in my body, and it's the pain that someone's feeling in their body. So once I start describing it, I'll be getting more information on the pain. And then usually the client is telling me, yes, I've had this issue for so long, and we'll dig into it. Sometimes I'll have these emotional releases, and I know they're not mine because I'm not in the place of having an emotional release while I'm having that. So I might feel heartbreak. I might feel deep sorrow. And so that experience that I'm having and that I'm sharing with a client, they'll understand on this very deep soul level what I'm expressing to them. And so, you know, I encourage bringing a journal and a pen during a session to jot down whatever feels important to you during, so you can reference back. But really beyond that, like, it's getting into your subconscious no matter what. Like in the moment, as we're doing the sessions, you are receiving the full information. But I personally love to have journals because I love to look back and just see just these beautiful little snapshots. I have some of the like most incredible little, you know, notes of like experiences that I've had with people. Wow. Like this one was someone's throat chakra was opening, and I felt butterflies in my throat, like they had to speak. And this person was really good with poetry. And it was coming through really strongly for them, you know, or like funny little things. I often get these really silly, adorable, like animations or like Disney characters.
Yes.
Like,
oh my God.
right?
Yeah. That's the wildest. That was my first. Yeah. Sorry. That was also some of my first readings. And I was like, why are they showing me Disney?
Yeah. And I think that's important to mention. Like, it's not always so serious. It's not this serious, intense thing. It's like, it's very playful, very joyful, very light. And that often comes up in some very like difficult, you know, conversations. So it's just, you know, it meets you exactly where you at. It gives you exactly what you need when you need it.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean,
and exactly that what you mentioned about the seriousness or the humor, and you know, I think in general, like there's different readers also that get different, like remember we're all in a different like energy, like we have different vibration. So as a reader, as a person, you do have a different vibration. Me and Lindsay, we have different vibrations. So a reading with Lindsay would be maybe something totally different than the reading for me.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean that one is better than the other. It's just a different form of a reading, you know, and that's the fun thing when we're reading for one another. We're like, I'm always amazed by what you can see that I would be like, I don't think I would ever go there, you know. So the thing, what is the essence that I really feel is important to tell people is that more or less it's very, again, this is not a psychic, like sometimes psychic readings can be a little bit like digging into like stuff that the Akashic records, they don't necessarily do it unless it's really important. Like it's always very empowering and it's always very light. And it doesn't mean that it's like spiritual bypassing or anything like that. It's more like the essence of our souls, as I've been shown in the records, are so much lighter and greater than we would ever acknowledge in these bodies on this earth, right? Just look at the animals and look at how everything moves. Like the nature is like, nature doesn't have drama. We make a lot of drama as human beings. So in general, for me in the records, there's usually very little drama. There's usually just very much like empowerment, greatness. They're usually showing me the people's like most biggest greatness, and it brings usually a lot of tears and like heart opening for me, because I'm like, oh, do you realize how amazing you are, you know? And that's not necessarily me. I mean, that's just like they would love all of us to acknowledge our beauty and our greatness much, much, much more than we would maybe ever be willing to acknowledge.
Mm-hmm. And I love that. And it's making me think of this other really fun perspective that came through about the records. I have a long-term client who, when I first started working with her, she was very angry. And when we were having the session, she was like, I don't understand. Where is this information coming from? What is it? What is that? What is that? And we're in her records, right? So I start getting an explanation to work with her to explain what the information is that I'm receiving. And I thought this was beautiful and it stuck with me. So I was being shown a mountain, and on one side of the mountain, the sun was shining on it. There was light on it. And on the other side, it was in the shadows. And so the perspective of the Akashic Records is the apex where they both meet. It has our darkness and our light in perfect balance. And so that's why it's the highest perspective of you and everyone connected to you, because as Jósa said, this is not spiritual bypassing. This is the perfect balance of our light and our darkness in perfect harmony. And so, you know, that's why it's just so, it's so profound and non-judgmental.
It is, because also, you know, we are taught in this reality a lot to kind of ignore our shadows or try to get rid of them, try to make them, we make them bad. Usually it's like, but you know, in the Akashic field, they don't have that, right or wrong, good or bad. They're like, oh, you have that. How can you see this for your highest beneficials? How can we add this into your archives of greatness? Like, how can you get empowered with this? Like, you know, if you're like really moody in the mornings, like, wow, okay, how can we make that into your greatness? Like, how can you use this for your own advantage and to the people around you even? Like, so there's a lot of like, it can be really, it's taking me to the Osho, like how the duality, like it's very much like the duality on this planet is so intense, especially now. But in the records, it always feels like they show us the duality, but you can always flip the down and up. So you're always able to turn it in the way that you would like to turn it.
Mm-hmm. And another thing, I know Jósa explains this too, is that, you know, one of the biggest lessons of the Akashic Records is that there's no point in judgment. And what's behind that is that we have all been each other. We have all been everything that's ever existed. We have all been plants, animals. We've been masters. We've been slaves. We've been royalty. We've been mothers. We've been fathers. Like, we've been everything. And you'll see your past lives come through during sessions, showing you all the different beings, all the different souls, like your soul's journey, all the different beings that you've been. So it's remarkable.
And that is so beautiful, because that brings you to finding compassion with who exactly you are in this lifetime. And I feel that that is the essence of the records. When you're able to use all the information gathered to really get to find compassion with who you are, you know, and the people around you as well. Because, you know, if you have like a caregiver that was really harsh on you, you know, one thing actually that was the biggest thing that I got confirmed in the class with Christina, you know, not because this is true and this is not true. It's like I had this feeling over and over again that, of course, I chose my parents. I chose my life. And that was really confirmed in the class. And how beautiful is that we have chosen these lives, you know, and wow, if you were to choose you as the character in your movie, like, you know, wouldn't you support that character? Like, usually you want the main character to like get really strong and go and get the ultimate power that is possible. So I feel that is very much for me how the Akashic Records are. It's really to empower you to know who you are.
Yes, yeah, and all that you've been. Yeah, absolutely. I think maybe this would be a good time to maybe open up to questions if anyone has questions for us. Do you give any prior recommendations to a client in regards to a session preparation, such as meditate before, etc.? I mean, the number one rule is really like, and this is especially for us, but I believe for the clients as well, no drugs or alcohol like 24 hours before your session. I think that's one thing specifically, definitely not during, and ideally not 24 hours before. And that's just really to respect the sacredness of this work, and also for you to receive, you know, the full experience of what you are, what you're receiving. And I usually say, you know, prepare some questions, think about some things that maybe you really want to move through, maybe some things that have been kind of, you know, stuck, something you might be stuck on. But really, I say, ask any questions, anything you could possibly think of. It could be like smaller everyday things or big existential questions, like come with all your questions. Do you want to answer that question as well?
I think that's very much how I also would do it. I usually say prepare 3 questions. Like that's what I say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we got Amy. Are past lives or connection between two people fixed things that different readers of the Akashic Records would see similarly? I think we'd probably see similarly.
I would say, I mean, of course we can't, maybe we should try this out, Lindsay. I think the records pretty much show, you know, the energy that is required for you to see as the one that is being read. It might be shown in different ways, but I think in general, there, you know, the archives are the same, you know.
Mm-hmm. So we have some good ones. Oh, say Claudia, I'll get to that in a second. How long does a session usually last? I feel like we do like 30-minute, 1 hour, probably not too much more than an hour. And that's about respecting the time. You'll get your information pretty swiftly.
It depends on, yeah, I feel like for me, it's like, it can be 30 minutes, it can be 90 minutes, but that can be like when you're doing like a very deep healing at the same time.
So Claudia and Jelena, this might answer some of this as well. So, and I think perhaps Jósa, you know this too, or you've found this too. People find access to the records without necessarily training like we do, like we were formally trained. I know lots of people who work in the records, and you know, it wasn't the way that we were trained. What I have asked about this, and when did people start accessing them? This is ancient.
Oh yeah.
And
So,
if you want a description of how it kind of came to be, and this was also information from the records. So speaking of us as being vibrations, I think there's a vibrational energetic match to the Akashic Records. And so when I asked this question, I was shown a light beam in the sky coming down on Earth and light beams of people down on Earth. And they kind of scan, and then they match up, and then you become this conduit, this channel to be able to receive. And Jósa, tell me if you've noticed this, but in the past few months, I have seen that my friends who practice Reiki are attuned to Reiki. When you're attuned to Reiki, you are a clear channel for healing. You are in a higher vibrational match. And so it's almost like I've seen the path of Reiki lead to the Akashic Records. And it's almost as if the being a channel for Reiki almost preps and primes you for being a clear channel for healing for the Akashic Records. So that's just
yes.
what I've experienced. So I'd be curious to see what Jósa has experienced.
Yes, as a Reiki practitioner, this is very interesting that you're bringing this up, Lindsay, because I think last year, at some point, end of the last year, I was working on someone, and what came through was like they said Akashic Reiki. And I was like, what is Akashic Reiki? So I've actually been practicing Akashic Reiki, and they have showed me, and I know it on the sensation of my body, that it's different. There's a little bit of a different sensation in the Akashic Reiki, and it's not to separate the two, and it's just to acknowledge that there's something that is Akashic Reiki, and then there's Reiki. So that's what I've gotten, is like when I do sessions, there's usually the Akashic Reiki that comes through, and I heat up immensely in my body on a cellular level, and then I know, oh, this is the Akashic Reiki. And that's really strange and fun and powerful. And yes, I do see, Reiki and Akashic Records are very, these are the ancient, Akashic Records are so ancient. They even talk about them in the Bible somewhere, I've heard. And usually it was there at that time, they were like only man doing this. So I think like as we are empowering more and more as the feminine here on the planet, that's why Akashic is becoming more of like a practice field for us women to work with, so we can be more connected with the Akashic that we were always meant to be,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It is deeply empowering. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So are there any other questions? Oh, the other planets, yes, there's lots of stuff that comes from intergalactic extraterrestrial life, comes through a lot. I mean, I've opened records, and some really incredible humans in this life were extraterrestrial, and they have this otherworldly vibration where they touch plants and animals, and it almost electrifies what they touch. It has this otherworldly healing energy, and it comes from their previous life where they were extraterrestrial. So, I mean, we get alien stuff all the time. You can't cap that. It goes beyond.
Have you received?
Go ahead.
Okay, Claudia, have you received information about how the records are actually kept? Who keeps them? We were shown that at the beginning class, I felt. I did see a vision of the record keepers. I never see their faces, so I always only see their backs as they are looking towards the records. And I never really see, I have a sensation of a book, very like a big book, And but the record keepers are the ones that it's kind of like very holy. It's really kept away from, I can't go there, I'm not traveling there, I'm just receiving information from that space through maybe other beings, like it can be entities or teachers or just like a pure intuition. So that's how I get it.
You see Amy. Amy, is there such a thing as new life, new energy that hasn't previously had another energetic form? Amy, that would be a great question to open the records and ask. And I feel like that question is so right on time.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I don't have an answer, but I would love to open the record sometime and ask that question. Do you have an answer for that?
No, but do you know what? I actually think that's a very good theme for a class. Maybe we could maybe offer that in a class.
It would be so much fun. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I know we're just about at time.
Yeah.
But if the Akashic Records deal with all life all over, why would the keepers be humanoid and use a book, a human invention, or is that just how it presents to Jósa? Maybe it presents differently to others. You know, it's interesting. I mean, I think I've seen lots of imagery just as it being described as like vibrational archives. We say the library, the book, the books of life, the book of life. I think that's a way to communicate it to more generalized population. And as far as the keepers being like humanoids and using a book, I actually haven't seen the Lords of the Akashic Records. I call them in the opening prayer, but I have not seen them. I also haven't thought to ask. I feel their energy. I feel their humor through the messages, and I get a sense of them that way, but I don't actually I have not seen form. Would it be possible to do a session with a couple, or it has to be individually? That's interesting.
I think it can definitely be, yeah, a couple. You know, what I would do would be to open up your records, both of you, like together, and then just get the inflow of information. Often when people come in and they ask about their partner, I can never tell exactly about the partner, and that's not where we want to go. However, I can see a relation to that person. So I do get a lot of information, but it's your relation to that person. So, but I'm curious to see what would happen if we would open for two people at once.
That could be fun, a fun experiment.
Yeah.
And just to reiterate what Jósa had said previously is this, we never open the records without permission. And you can feel, I mean, first of all, you just don't do that. But if, you know, someone was like, you know, I'm curious about opening on a past loved one, you never do that. I've played around to see if I could open the records on my cat, or someone wanted to open on their pet, and you feel a yes or a no. And most of the time when I have tried to ask permission, I always get a no. I get a no. So yeah, you definitely, have to ask permission. If both partners in the relationship are, you know, yes, we'd like to open, I would probably, you know, I would do it. But I've mostly just done one-on-one. But yeah. Where did you say? Oh, this is special, Tanya. So Jósa and I trained at Maha Rose in Greenpoint, Brooklyn with Christina Cross. And it's a very special place to us. So, yeah.
Yeah. They currently now are closing down their physical space in Brooklyn, which is really sad for all of us. Wow, all the amazing trainings and sessions and the community that we've had there has been really of a big value for both of us. So, but I wonder what is gonna show up now. You know, we always like, and that's another thing, how I've started to function a lot with all of this work is like always ask, but yes, and what else is possible? So we don't get stuck with that, oh, this is just sad, but we always gotta ask, okay, acknowledge this is sad, and what else is possible? Where are we gonna go next? Where are we being led? Yeah.
Is there a sister school or program here in the Bay? Is it possible to have a virtual? Yes, we do virtual sessions. Virtual sessions are just as good as in person. Is there a sister school or program here in the Bay? You know, Maha Rose, they have another location in Mazunte, Mexico, and then they have one in upstate New York.
Actually, I want to mention something. I just saw it like on their webpage yesterday or this morning, I think. And I just want to announce it because Christina Cross is doing a training through Maharose next week, I think, or in 2 weeks. And so you can do this training online with her. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's perfect. So look into Christina Cross, Akashic Records, Christina Cross, and you can look into Maharose, Maharose. Look into everything that's going. I mean, that's where we came from. That's our school, that's our home, and I'm pretty sure we can both vouch for everybody who's connected within that community. And you know, I feel like everyone's all over, East Coast, West Coast, all over the world. So it's a beautiful community to pay attention to.
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us.
Yeah,
This was fun.
Thank you, Jósa and Lindsay. This was so informative. This is all new for me, which is why I love having you on here, because I'm learning so much from everything you're saying, Lindsay. So I know that we have to wrap up because Jósa has another appointment to get to. But thank you, everybody. Again, I'm Simran. I'm with Canopy. And we do a wellness series every Thursday. So keep an eye out on our newsletters and also on our Facebook and YouTube pages. Okay, Lindsay and Jósa, thank you. And
Thank you so much, everyone.
all right, bye.
Thank you, Canopy.